roll call just to let everyone know that both Tom Malvesto and Alan Valaquette and Kim Gina and Virginia Gatchell talked to me beforehand, and they will not be able to make it tonight, so they are excused. And I believe that John Hennessy will be in attendance later on, hopefully. So let's see, moving on to the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda as presented? Hearing none, we'll move on. Approval of the meeting minutes. So before you, you should have a copy of the meeting minutes from September 21st of 2017. We did not have a meeting last month due to a lack of attendance. So I hope everyone's had a chance to review them, but I will give you, about 30 seconds or so to look at them now and let me know if there's any inconsistencies. I know there's a few spelling errors which I'll change later on, but if there's anything that I did not include or something that should change. What's that?
Wrong date.
Have the wrong date there?
Oh, yeah. Under new business, homecoming, it did not occur on September 13th.
Okay, which?
22nd.
22nd, okay. Thank you.
And down below under other issues, paint the town red, it's September 24th when we had a booth.
Okay, 24th. Thank you. Anything else?
It's BPAC, not BPAC.
Okay. What's that?
My autocorrect does that too.
Yeah, blame something, huh?
I did not see that. Yep. So truth be told, I wrote these at lunch hour today. So aside from some of the egregious spelling errors, does anyone have any other revisions to the minutes? Hearing none, I'll make the motion myself to approve these. Can I get a motion? Great. 1 second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
4-0, passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Next, we have our open public comment for anyone that does come to the meeting. We are happy to hear from anybody related to things that are not on the agenda or things that are on the agenda. So for those at home, if you feel like coming down later today or at another meeting, please come down. We encourage you to do so. But seeing no one here from the public specifically, we're going to close public comment and move directly into our open space liaison report. So I'd like to call Cliff up to the podium to give us an update on what's been going on with open space.
Good evening, all. We had quite a few things going on with the open space program recently. We completed the October Dump the Junk event, and it was a very good success. The amount that we collected from the sale of scrap metal was $500, and as per our procedure, that $500 is contributed to local charities. And this time, I think we split it up into two different charities, the Gardens of Hope and the Grosse Ile Goodfellows. Our policy is to contribute these funds to local charities that serve Grosse Ile. We've also completed the maintenance work on 3 of our 4 trails, namely the Manchester Trail, which is on right off of Meridian, the Playscape Trail, and the Centennial Farm Trail. The Wildlife Sanctuary Trail was found to be in very good shape, so there was no maintenance work required. We are working very diligently on trying to resolve the issues with the ferry trail. I cannot get into the details because there are some private matters that have to be resolved, but I want to assure this committee and the public at large is that we're working very diligently to try to resolve this particular issue. The next thing that we're going to be working on is something that probably all our committees and commissions work on, is that's preparing our annual reports and our spending plans for the next fiscal year. As you probably know, the open space program has two funds rather. One is the acquisition fund, which consists of close to a little over $500,000 for the acquisition of additional open space. That millage expired, is no longer being collected, but that's the amount that's in that fund. Next, in our maintenance fund, there's about $270,000 left in that particular fund. So funding is not an issue with us right now. However, we're getting a little bit concerned about the maintenance fund because we're using that up, and one of these days we might have to go back to the voters, but we'll have to decide that later. And we're also working with the township on some additional property acquisitions. Again, it's in a very confidential stage right now, so we really can't talk about it in detail in public. So that's about it. I'm very happy to be here, and I wish you all success in your activities and for a very happy holidays.
Thank you, sir. I greatly appreciate the update. And I'd just like to comment that, I've gone on the Manchester Trail several times over this year, and it's a treat to be out there and to be riding, to see all of the improvements that have been done over the last year or so. I know I've done it in the past, and it was a little harder, and now, this time it's been a lot easier, and you can clearly see where the path is, and a lot of the obstructions are gone. There's nice added wood chips to the area. Riding a bike, I can get through there. Walking would be even better, and I see lots of people, using that trail itself. So I want to congratulate you on that, and thank you for your leadership on that, as well as say it looks like it's a huge success for the public as well.
That trail is it's the longest trail that we have in our system, and that trail was kind of incorporated or started by a young lad who was our student liaison about 3 or 4 years ago. He wrote a letter to me and stated that he had seen a trail up north. They call it a fit strip trail, and he's wondering if he could put one in our locale. So I invited him to a meeting. We looked around at some of the existing trails, and he thought maybe the Manchester Trail might be a good one. So we spent quite a bit of time and money, and now we have a trail that we can be very proud of.
Very cool. I'd like to just mention to you, since you were talking about your budget and the acquisition fund, that you have $500,000. There is the Department of Natural Resources Trust Fund. They have it's a fund, for those of that familiar, by the Department of Natural Resources, and so any money that is acquired by the sale of natural resources on public land, it goes into this fund, and there's a large amount that's actually used for the acquisition of specific properties. So if you're looking at doing some projects, it might be interesting to look at that Natural Resources Trust Fund for the acquisition side to see if that might be able to help supplement your budget.
Okay. Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we'll move into old business. So I just maybe have a recap from Jane about some of the events that have been happening.
Well, we deleted one on the last day, one. Global, it was cold, my feet froze. We had started with 9 people, and then 3 people backed away, and we were brave to bike about 10, 12 miles, 6 of us at the end. So it was nice. Mm-hmm. And 2 of the year, we succeeded, and I was told that they did raise some money, and they were able to donate to different charities. So we had a great one.
And if I recall, there was 2 glow rolls in the month of October, correct? So was there any difference, within participation between the first one and the second one? Would you say that?
Let me look real quick. I keep track of the attendance. Excuse me.
We're all throughout the summer, actually. have
Okay,
good
very
turnout.
similar. 8 for October 11th and 9 on October 26th. It's a different location, different distance, but they're always pretty much the same.
Mm-hmm.
We end up having fun. We're starting to have regulars now that I'm seeing familiar faces. So, doing good.
Now, there's a colleague of mine that is works in Highland Park, and he's passionate about bicycling. I think he has a tricycle, specifically adult tricycle. And every time I see him, he's like, I'm going to come down for one of those glow rolls. So the excitement is building, and it's more than just in southern Wayne County in the downriver area. It's starting to actually catch on in other parts. So let's hope that we can attract more people to show off our island.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I have people coming from different communities coming. One was from Ecorse. That's do a lazy ride. Flat Rock. People from this area started to come. So next year, what I plan on doing is, this year what we did is, these are the days, and we will tell you where we're going to meet. Next year, I want to be planned, ready to go. This is where, what time, and when, ahead of time. So that's what I plan on doing maybe in February, March of next year.
Sounds good. You have more time to advertise the different events and get people excited about it.
Get
Put it
more
in
people.
different publications.
Mm-hmm.
Jane, there was several glow rolls with a large turnout. I remember at one time we had 60 plus people, and those were good events, especially when we were able to, and I want to thank the people at the Oldsmobile Mansion when they allowed us to come over there for the garden tour.
Yeah.
That was a huge turnout. So there's been several times where we've had some really good turnouts, especially when the weather's nice.
Oh yeah, I enjoyed. We had 50 people there.
Mm-hmm.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect weather.
We need to get back up into that 100 plus.
Yeah, that's what we did in the beginning. It's
Yeah.
a matter of improving ourselves better in terms of publicity and planning and the weather.
We have a lot of competition. Like Brian said, there's a lot of communities doing these glow rolls. A lot of them.
I know Taylor took our name Global, and I wasn't comfortable with that. Taylor. So I'm hoping they'll change the name. But that's great that more communities are doing it. But come and visit the island. It's fun.
Well, I want to thank you for spearheading these projects because it's.
You're welcome.
I mean, we need the education, we need the encouragement activities out there, and so I don't think these would have happened without you. So I want to again thank you for all of your hard work over the past year, and we'll see what we can do
You're
to help
welcome.
assist you with the years to come.
Start planning. I'm gonna hibernate first.
Next item under old business is the bridge work for, if you recall, we did approve West Pfeiffer to stain 2 of the 3 bridges on our paths. So we did the one down here on Grow Road, and we also did the one that crosses the Thoroughfare Canal. We left off the one across from the Meridian Elementary School, specifically because it needs additional structural work, and so we'll have to be replacing those boards anyways, so it wouldn't have been money well spent in order to stain that deck. So, like I said, have folks had a chance to get out and view the actual work that was done?
The 2 bridges that they did, I checked them, and they did a fine job. We've never had a problem with the work they do. Did a phenomenal job of washing it. They didn't go too deep into the wood to ruin it. They were able to do it just right, and then after it dried it for a few days, they stained it, and it looks really good. Did a nice job.
Great.
I agree, it looks really good.
Looks good. I remember planning on back in Grow. Yellow ribbon. So they were working on it.
Oh,
And same thing on Thoroughfare. I didn't have a chance to really inspect it, but it looked good. It always has been looking good.
I noticed Wes was having trouble trying to keep people off the bridges during the staining. So we might look into other ways that we might be able to, for one, communicate more. I know we did get out the word via Grosio Connect that the bridges were going to be closed, but I'm sure that there's plenty of people that either didn't notice that or forgot about it, and then they ride to a location, and what are they supposed to do? Either turn around or go out in the street, so or they can ride through. So maybe there's ways that we can help block it, and maybe we can look at some detours if we know that's going to be longer. But other than that, I mean,
I don't know.
I think he did it very quickly. I mean, I believe it was just 2 or 3 days or so per bridge that he was working on it. So.
He did it in a timely manner, but when you have the caution tape going across, people just come along and pull it down. And I'll be honest, I was coming southbound by the thoroughfare, and I expected it to be closed. And I thought, well, they're done with it already. So I proceed across, but what somebody had done was remove the tape at the end. And by the time I got to the other end, there was boards and everything. I was like, oh, my goodness, maybe we should put boards on both ends next time.
Mm-hmm. And then maybe a gate or something where you can have a padlock on it.
Yeah,
and
I
that
was
way it's
thinking a
easier
gate.
for-
We got to allow it to dry and cure.
You know what may work is those Jersey barriers you see in downtown Detroit, the plastic orange ones. You fill them full of water.
Oh, okay. So
And
like
the-
the ones that are in Trenton on.
Yes, and they're downtown around the buildings. In Detroit, they're very hard to move. Those are called Jersey barriers, and they're pretty inexpensive to purchase.
We might ask our DPW if we may even have any of those.
Yeah, they may have some.
We may have some, and we're not aware of it.
And then
We'll check
just
that out.
it's easy to fill and to drain and.
Thank you for that. That's something I didn't know, that those ones were also Jersey barriers, because I always just thought of the big, thick concrete ones as being the Jersey barriers. So
Yeah, those are referred to as something else, actually. I don't know the name, but I think the Jersey barriers are the plastic ones that are.
okay.
It's nice that they're
Learn
that
something
portable
every day.
like that.
That's right.
You
You
know,
can-
you move
and
them around.
Actually, you only have to fill them about quarter way. I mean, they're pretty. Somebody really has to want to to move them then.
Well, we'll definitely look into that, and then I'll let Dale know that we're ready to process payment for West Pfeiffer, and I'll send him a thank you as well. So last item under old business is about the doggy pets, the Tails donation. So Bob, I know you've been kind of taking the lead on this, and you've coordinated some work with Roberta as well as
Yes.
talked with Open Space Committee. So
Yes. Well, we've got 3 more on order for the year. And the first one we put up there at Macomb and Meridian, it's being used. We're not a big community where we will go through these doggy bags immediately. It will take a long time. Over the several months it was up there, we went through like 14 to 16 bags or so. And that's just the way the traffic is. A lot of people were concerned with, we're trying to put them wherever there's a recyclable, not a recyclable, but a garbage thing to take the bags. People were saying, well, it may start an odor and things like that. But I said, but that's already going on now. People, when they're walking their dogs, are picking it up already. Some are, there are some that aren't, but it's already going into the trash. So there'll be no more extra whatever. But it's nice that a lot of communities have these doggy pots. Like I said, they've ordered 3 more. We've discussed about where we would like the next 3 to go. Hopefully, working with Open Space, I left them some literature. I'd like to see one go on one of their soft trails. And this is all donated by Tells. And I'll keep in contact with Roberta, and she's in contact with me. As soon as the next 3 come in, we'll try and get them in before bad weather really sets in. It's really not that difficult a job to hang these things. It comes out good. But right now, we got 3 on order. See what happens.
I have a question for you, Bob.
What's
You
that?
said that went to approximately 15 bags at the one location. How are you measuring that? Because I assume they're all in like one cartridge and you just pull it out. So I would guess that'd be kind of you guessing as far as the number of bags. Like, is there a way that you're able to interpret that's 15
Yes.
versus
The
5?
serrated pull. Each cartridge that hangs holds 100 bags, and this one over here on Macomb, it actually has 400 in it right now. I thought it was 800, but then when I check on it periodically, but I can count, the tabs of how many have been pulled off, and like I say, it was either 14 to 16 of them. I'm sure in time it will increase, but right now it's going to take a long time to go through 400 bags. It may take a few years, but at least it's there. We chose to put it there because BPAC chose to put it there. because of the concert on the Commons. I go there on Sunday nights and listen to the music, and a lot of people show up with their dogs. And I thought, what a perfect place to put it. And this way here we get feedback. And we get a lot of positive feedback on it. And there are the few naysayers, but other than that, a lot of people like it. And that's how they're counted, the little serrations.
Thank you, Bob. Moving on to new business, the first item is bike racks on Main Street. Now, this is something that one of our commission members asked to be put on the agenda for our October meeting. I can't remember who it was, if it was Bob or if it was Jane or somebody else. So,
Wow.
I think I mentioned that.
you mentioned that?
I
Okay.
think so.
So would you like to kind of summarize what you'd like to, what the concept is with the bike racks on Main Street? What's the plan, or are we is it just an idea and we need to explore it more?
All of the above. One, I'm tired of tying my bike on a tree.
Mm-hmm.
Two, it'd be nice to have maybe a mashing set for the businesses, like a shape of a bike, or a shape of, not a traditional one. It'd be kind of cool, and that would be something nice for people to come to Grodea thinking, oh, they have a really cool bike rack. Traditional one, oh, okay, fine. Three, maybe the businesses could sponsor a bike rack. Four, maybe we can have a contest and maybe we can find a company who can do welding and make the bike rack. And five, when you see the bike racks, if you build it, they will come. So if you see bike racks, they will encourage more bikers.
Mm-hmm.
I like to park my bike somewhere.
Okay. Well, I can tell you that from the Planning Commission perspective, that when we're doing new developments, so when we're reviewing site plans, that's one of the things that we are looking for, especially if it's a land use that we think would be drawing more. Is so some of the redevelopments will be having bike racks in there, but that takes time. I think probably one of the first steps would be to talk with our DDA director, Angela, and I'm sure that she would be on board with that, so we can see what ideas she has and figure out a way. You just listed a couple different ways that we could potentially do these, but see if the business owners themselves are interested in it and see how we can implement it. So, thanks for the idea.
Maybe I can contact Angela one day. I can meet with her and then see what we can come up with and negotiate something.
Okay. Let's see if we can maybe bring her to a study session so that way all of us can be involved, and because I'm sure that there's going to be other things that she'd like to talk about. She's expressed interest in working more with our commission. She really liked the Walk the Path event and wanted to bring that into the farther into the downtown. She's been looking at how to bring more of the traffic from Island Fest in the downtown area with potential bike events into the downtown area. We've been speaking about winter events that might be okay. It might be a little bit more bike centric, maybe getting in some of those wider tire fat bikes for demos and things. So I think she has some ideas, and it would be fruitful for us to have a larger conversation rather than just one of us one off and just having a conversation about one specific issue.
Well, maybe you can invite her to our next study session.
Yeah. Any other comments or discussion about this specific issue? So the next item is repair station by the police station. I assume that's you as well, Jane?
Is it going to happen? Well, Alan was the one who wanted to get that going, so we haven't seen Alan down.
Okay,
Maybe when Alan gets back.
gotcha. Okay. Next item I'll take the lead on, and both Aaron and John and I met with a subset of the Department of Public Services, or DPS Commission, to talk about strategy for fixing roads at the same time potentially providing more opportunities for walking and biking. they are looking to go out for a potential road millage next year. And so they're looking at, excuse me, a couple of the major roadways, and they were looking for, what our specific plans were. And so we talked a lot. We talked a little bit about overarching goals, and they're asking us about a non-motorized plan. But they also specifically were talking about East River as far as pavement was done. And so we just looked at ways where we might be able to put in something with a very, very small footprint. So that way we're not impacting any property owners. So we're exploring opportunities with that. So we will share some of the things that we discussed with that DPS, as well as some of the potential options that our subcommittee has looked at with the larger group. And, we can talk about that a little bit more at future meetings. But I'll just say as of right now, this is more of a longer term thing. It's nothing that's happening very shortly, but it's one of the opportunities for our commission, again, to be working with the other township commissions and committees, just like we've had Cliff from Open Space come here, and I've been going to the Open Space meetings. We're trying to break down some of the silos between the various efforts in the township, and this is just another one that's working out really well. So Aaron or John, I'm not sure if there's anything else that you'd like to comment on about that meeting.
No, I thought it was very productive, and I think it's good to get our goals out there with them and to see if we can kind of create the synergy. And it certainly was very receptive, I think. A lot's going to depend upon the millage, I think. I think that's very important that all the committees within the township support the infrastructure and the need for the investment in the infrastructure. And we all like to think it's free, but it isn't free, and we've got to do that. And I think we'll benefit our whole community by achieving that. And I think by breaking down these silos, as Brian's mentioned, it really helps that.
Thanks for the comments, John. Last item under new business, it's something that's come up, time and time again, that we've got a draft plan that's been on our, it's been on a website that we developed using Wix in order to show various mapping efforts and different initiatives. It's been in the draft stage. I'm hoping that we can have a study session soon to try and make that a little bit more officially sanctioned by BPAC, so that way we can run it by the township board and make sure that they're okay with it. And if so, we'll have an overarching plan that we'll be able to share with other departments, but also other agencies outside of Groseal as we're looking for grant opportunities. So I'm hoping that maybe sometime in December or early January to get a study session together and really hammer that out.
That being said, I was going to make a motion because our next meeting will be just a few days before the Christmas holiday. I was going to make a motion not to have a meeting in December, but if we want to have a study session early in December before the first of the year, is anybody interested in a study session? Make a motion to have an early study session on a particular date?
Okay.
Like maybe the first or second week of December, instead of us having our monthly meeting so close to the holiday. I'd like to make a motion to have a study session.
I'm pretty flexible,
So am I.
depending on the things in my life. But yeah, if you plan a specific date, I'll put it in my calendar.
Okay.
We'll make a
And
note
you
to
too.
get in communication with each other, and we'll get a study session and put it out to the public for review.
Sounds great.
Would we try to get the DDA director at that?
Yeah, we can invite anybody from the other committees to see if they're interested to come out. I think they'd be optional for that. I think
Sure.
the focus
Depends
would be
on
more
their schedule,
so on,
obviously, and
yeah.
what their commitments are. But it might be good to address some of the other issues, about the bike racks on Main Street,
Mm-hmm.
and talk about all of these things, if our schedule permits it.
Yeah, because, we definitely, want to look at, bike racks in the DDA, but also in other spots
Sure.
throughout the area. We've talked about the fix-it stations, and, the one location seemed ideal, but there might be other ones that would be applicable as well as we are still more of the point commission for benches, because, a lot of the benches that people would be looking to donate, they're interested in doing them along the paths. So even if they haven't been on the path, they've been, emails have trickled in throughout the year, and so I coordinate a little bit on that with the Dale, and at least give them the cost information on that. So we could be able to kind of pinpoint where we have existing benches as well as where we might need some upgrades. So, some of them are getting a little bit older, some of them don't have, a concrete or other impervious base, so it's like you have to move the bench out of the way in order for the mowers to go by, and then it never gets back in the right spot. Sometimes it's on the path, sometimes it's very far away from the path. So there's a lot of little amenities that we can kind of pinpoint where we might like to see some of those either tweaks or potential new spots. Additionally, I will invite the rec commission to see if they're interested in coming out to it.
Yeah, maybe in addition to that, if people want to donate to the bench, great. Maybe donate a bike rack too.
Sounds good. Next item on the agenda would be the Township Liaisons Report. Seeing that Tom Malvesto is not here, we will table that. And we'll move right into Chairperson's Report unless there's anything else that people would like to talk about. Hearing none, I'll say the first thing, which we've been kind of talking about already, is that one of my goals is to make sure that there's more coordination amongst our various commissions. We've had that as a goal for a while, and we've done it with limited success, but now I'm reaching out to the chairs of the commissions, and we're formally having dates. So we did have the study session with the DPS. I have been talking with Chad Novak of the Recreation Commission, so we're hoping to have something set up here for more coordination. They've got some ideas that are related to walking and biking. Obviously, we have ideas for different programs, which Jane has been moving forward with, and then also more infrastructure side. So a lot of funds are recreation based. And, we might be able to use some of those funds in order to leverage some transportation-based funding sources in order to implement projects. So I think it's a win-win if we can coordinate more on a variety of subjects. So, definitely, have the coordination with recreation, with DPS. We have open space. I'm serving on the Planning Commission, so I have that capacity. And we're going to invite, the DDA to be a part of some of our study sessions. But if there's anybody else that you want to see us make contact with very shortly, please let me know, and I'll try to reach out to them. Next item on the report is Iron Bell Trail meetings. So SEMCOG, Southeast Michigan Council of Governments, which is my employer, they have been contracted with the Department of Natural Resources to help facilitate discussions on the implementation of the Iron Bell Trail, which is the Governor Snyder's vision for a trail that goes from the city of Detroit and Belle Isle up to Ironwood, in the Upper Peninsula on the border with Wisconsin. So there's two different routes available in your packet. I have shown the Iron Bell Trail map for Wayne County, as well as in Washtenaw County. So it's the hiking route. That's the one that goes south. There's also a bicycling route that goes from Belle Isle north through Macomb County and Oakland County. I have one map available of that if anyone's interested in looking at it. But we are holding a series of meetings for each county. So there was a meeting between, out in Washtenaw County where it focused on the Border Trail and connections north and westward towards the Lakelands Trail and making that connection outside of our region. There was another meeting in the city of Detroit for Wayne County for the hiking route. and that included members of the downriver linked greenways, as well as a lot of the downriver communities in that area, as well as Van Buren Township and Huron Township and the metro parks, talking about filling in a lot of those gaps. So there was a series of meetings in Macomb and Oakland as well. So I guess the good news is that there's a lot of coordination going on, and people are getting excited about the projects. So I was there in attendance at all of them, but at the Wayne County one I did represent Groseal. And I happened to mention all the different assets that we have, about how we have, over 8 miles of, shared use pathways, that we have, a great little downtown, we have the airport, we have the alpaca farms, and it explained all these assets, and the aunt's response afterwards like, wow, I didn't realize that there was so much going on in a small little island like Groseal. So I had no idea it was out there. So people were really excited to hear about that, and they're pulling me aside afterwards and trying to learn a little bit more. So there's good opportunities out there for us to let people know about our island, as well as potentially get a little bit more paths available with these Iron Bell Trail meetings. Next item I wanted to briefly mention is that the state of Michigan passed legislation on electric bikes, commonly known as e-bikes. So for those of you who are not familiar with e-bikes, basically it's the common idea of the electric bike is that it's a regular bicycle that has a small electric motor that helps assist in certain situations. But there hasn't been real consensus on the size of that motor, or what the look and feel of an electric bicycle is. So there's been a lot of fear from the local agencies, and what do you do? How do you regulate these things? And so up until now, all electric bikes have been considered mopeds, and so they are not allowed on bicycle facilities. And I believe that you had to have a license in order to actually use it. And realizing that there's a clear distinction between some of these devices that people are buying and what mopeds are, the state legislature looked at a lot of the other best practices of other states that have been looking at e-bikes, and they decided to pass a series of legislation that basically broke up electric bikes into 3 classifications. They're very similar, but they have a little bit of a nuance. So, a Class 1 electric bicycle is a bicycle that you have to continuously pedal in order to actually have the electric motor assist you. It only goes up to about 20 miles an hour. And so, for all intents and purposes, it's basically like a regular bicycle. The only difference is that if you have a disability, or if you're traveling a little bit farther, maybe you can benefit from actually having that electric motor doing some of the work for you. The next classification is very similar to the first one, but the difference is that you don't have to actually be pedaling in order for the electric motor to work. So you have a little throttle where you'll be able to have the engine run. But again, you have the look and feel of the bicycle is the same as Class 1, and there is a speed maximum on those that they can only go 20 miles an hour. The third version is a little bit souped up. It's a little bit bigger of an engine, and I believe it can go up to 30 miles an hour. And so what they did is they said that for Classes 1 and 2, by default, they are allowed on all where all bicycles are now. So, if they're allowed to travel on a road that doesn't have any bicycling facilities whatsoever, they're allowed to travel on the bicycle lane. And, typically they are allowed to travel on shared use paths and such that are paved in nature. The Class 3 by default are not. But they provided exceptions within the legislation to allow for local control. So a community can say, well, we don't want these electric bicycles on our pathways, or we do want to promote them in certain situations. But what was nice about the legislation is it finally defined what an electric bike is and what it isn't. So that way it's easier for people to enforce the rules. I will send out more information about the electric bikes because I know it's it's easier to see tables and stuff rather than just hear me yattle on about this stuff. So the next item is
Brian,
yeah.
did they ever talk about like those electric scooters, or some of the kids have that?
As far as I understand, that doesn't actually fall within this legislation.
I see, sure.
Yeah, I don't think that they're
Not allowed on. Or it's probably a local agency.
It would be probably a local
Call.
agency issue, but
Sure.
I just don't think it's that big of an issue that people are looking at.
Sure.
Brian, are we planning to make a recommendation to the board? Or is it not as small? Is it larger than that?
The board, we can. What I would do is I'd send you out the information on it again, and that way we can discuss it maybe a little bit more at the study session level to see if there's any actions that we do want to take on it. My initial take is that the default that was set up for the class 1s and class 2s through for our specific facilities, it should be fine. And I communicated this information to Cliff, and he said that no motorized bicycles are allowed at all on the open space trails. So if we feel like there's a need to allow the electrical bicycles on those open space trails, we could have a conversation with Cliff and see if that's something that we do want to change. But again, I think it would be better just to look at it in more detail and see, do we just go with the default, or if there's something that we should enact at a local level. Any other questions? Okay. Next item is, there was a series of stakeholder meetings in the channel communities, and the channel communities, is sort of defined as City of Trenton, along with Groseal and Gibraltar. It's City of Trenton and Riverview and Wyandotte, Ecorse, and River Rouge. There was some meetings that took place as part of the Downriver Community Conference, where they were able to apply for a grant utilizing some matching funds from DTE to bring in a consultant to talk about economic redevelopment within those communities. The major impetus for this was because of the future closures of the 2 DTE power plants, one in the City of Trenton and one in River Rouge. And so they wanted to get a good cross-section of community stakeholders to talk about ways to provide more economic development to those communities. So there's some meetings about 2 weeks ago now. One in River Rouge that represented River Rouge and Ecorse, another one in Wyandotte, and another one in Riverview and Trenton. It had a cross-section of stakeholders such as local business owners, city staff, as well as some elected officials and some regional stakeholders such as SEMCOG, Wayne County, the Michigan Michigan Economic Development Corporation. And the idea was to ask, what are the assets that each of these communities have that they can work off, what makes them unique from other communities, what are some of the challenges, and what are different ways to move forward and develop. So along with redeveloping a lot of the industry in the areas, and talk about population growth, at least in the meetings that I attended at River Rouge. But I know that for a fact that there was some conversation in some other communities about this. There was a big focus on the Jefferson corridor and making it more walkable and bikeable and connected between all of the communities. So that way, if you're in River Rouge, you'll be able to go south all the way to Trenton and beyond, as well as go north into the city of Detroit, and talking about providing more mixed-use development and linking up the parks along the area. So I thought that was great to see that there was a lot of similarities between the communities and ways to reinvent reimagine the area and make it more of a destination for folks and actually branding it as a good corridor, similar like you have the Woodward corridor. So moving forward, there will be a report, and I'll share it with this commission, and we can see what our role might be involved with that. Last couple items revolve around new funding sources that are coming up. So the first one is the Transportation Alternatives Program. SEMCOG is going to be doing a call for projects in early December, as well as they're having a workshop about doing grants through the TAP process on December 13th at 1 p.m. in SEMCOG offices. There will be members of SEMCOG, of MDOT, DNR, as well as local communities that have implemented projects. So they're going to talk a lot about the Transportation Alternatives Program, but also some of the other funding sources that they've used to either complement the project or you're done without the TAP funds. So basically that's with that call, it's getting people geared up for the next deadline, which will be March 7th of 2018. So that might be something that we're interested in looking into do if we have a project in mind. We might not be ready for that though, but it's something that we could talk about again in our study session. The next item is that the Department of Natural Resources will be releasing an application for Iron Bell mini grants. So these are open to communities that are on the Iron Bell Trail. I believe the maximum amount is about $30,000, and it can be used for a variety of stuff, but a lot of communities have been using it as planning dollars for figuring out the engineering on a specific project or figuring out how to fill in the gaps. So that might, once I find out when that application is open, if we feel that we're ready to actually try and apply for that, that might be a source to learn a little bit more about how to fill in some of the gaps within the Iron Bell Trail. Specifically, it might be a good source for looking at filling that gap between Meridian and the Free Bridge. Last item is through the Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan. They're the ones facilitating this application process. There's the Ralph Wilson Legacy Design Funds. Again, this is a small source of funds, but it's open to communities that are looking to have more walking and biking access. So the deadline for that one is going to be in January. So I guess my summary is that there's quite a few different funding sources that are going to be open to us in the next couple months. So it'd be a good idea to again see if we're ready for them and make sure that we strike while the iron's hot. Concludes my report. If there's anything else that folks would like to talk about, we can do that now. And if not, I'd entertain a motion.
Brian, I have a quick question about the Iron Bell Trail map.
Yeah.
I know that we talked about a connection from the bridge to Meridian, but when I'm looking at this, and maybe it's just because it's not blown up, it looks like it actually goes south on West River to Grow, and then east to Meridian, and then does a loop. So it never actually. Now, would they think about changing the route if we had something, or do we need to go with the route that they have here?
They would definitely, entertain any options. So with the Iron Bell Trail, both the Department of Natural Resources and SEMCOG have said that this is the community's trail, so they're the ones that are actually implementing it. So if there needs to be a deviation from the said route, that's fine with them. They want to make sure that it is a route that's appropriate and fits the needs of the local community. So you can not only figure out the actual corridor, but also what type of facility that it is. Is it a shared use path? Is it a sidewalk? Is it a soft trail? There's a variety of things out there. But I guess they're most important that you fill in that gap and connect from one community to the other. Just the backstory on how that map got created was that originally it was supposed to be a bicycling route, and they looked to utilize both bridges on Groseal. So you'd be able to bicycle from, if you're coming from the north heading south, you cross the toll bridge in Riverview, come across, and go along East River and come back out using the Free Bridge on the south. When we got converted to the hiking route, that presented a little bit of a bigger obstacle. But again, we were looking to say, how do you do this without, without it just being a spur connecting into, from one spot and then you have to backtrack. So we looked at those routes, and that's kind of a long-term vision. But the shorter vision that's been implemented a little bit more by the Downriver Link Greenways, which did a gap assessment for all of the communities in southern Wayne County. They looked specifically at that connection between the Free Bridge and Macomb Street, because they looked at it as their goal is to try and get you to the overlook at the end of Macomb and East River. So I think that's the short-term goal, and if those other routes don't ever pan out, then it's unfortunate. But I think that as bicycling routes, they would do a good service as well. And so the route along Macomb could be just sort of the feeder for people to explore the rest of the island, which you might do by biking or exploring the different open spaces and different things that we have to offer. Other questions or comments?
No.
All right. Hearing none, I will make the motion to adjourn. Can I get a second?
I'll second the motion.
John? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
5-0. It is 8:31. Everyone walk, bike, or drive safe.